Hey y'all, welcome back to Things Come Together, where we talk about the history of soul food and how we made magic out of our toughest moments. And good morning, sunshine. Today I'm feeling good. I've been in an interesting space. The year is starting to wind down, and I feel like all the energy from this year is finally starting to settle. And honestly, I feel like all of the work that I've been doing over this year is also starting to pay off in a way of that. I'm just really not that stressed right now. I'm just really just I cut out a lot of my stressors. I've been in my house away from people. And still being social, still going out here and there, but for the most part, just really focusing on myself. And I feel like it's paid off because I'm very just unbothered, unmoved by a lot of things. So it's been good. It feels good. I feel like I've been doing a lot of reflecting, just on this whole year, but also, of course, thinking about the year ahead and how I want to build off of a lot of the things that I put into this year. And I've been reading this book. So my friend put me onto the book, The Power of Now. And it's really good. It's about mindfulness of just being very aware of where your thoughts are and being very present in the present moment. And I feel like I've been doing that kind of work for a while, but it feels good to be reading about it too and reflecting on what I was already doing and kind of where this book I feel like is pushing the reader to be. And it's been good because I'm okay, like I said, I've been practicing some of these things, but then it's okay, well, let me think about it from the perspective of the person who wrote the book. I've also been thinking about how, a lot of the book is about being present. And so I've been thinking about how this whole idea of not being too far in the past and not too far in the future, is a big part of it, of what I've read so far. And I agree with that. But I'm also one of those people, I'm a diehard, there is value in the past and there is hope in the future. And the book kind of touches on that too. So it's not saying to let those things go, but it is saying low key, let them go. And so I'm being aware, at least right now, of when I'm in either of those moments, but I'm also very much okay, I do still want to reflect on the past to inform what I'm doing in the present. And then similarly thinking about the future to inform how I'm moving in the present. And it gives the okay on that. So it's not really against that, but it really does push more into just be present. So I'm holding all of those things now. And I just feel I love that I'm getting back into reading because I used to be really big on reading and then I stopped for a long time. And so now I'm getting back into it. And I love that I'm slowing down and just doing a different pace and being more thoughtful. So that's kind of really where I've been at. It's no real extremes going on. Of course there are some more stressful things going on, but I'm just not very moved by them. So it feels like a good space to be in. And then for how did we get here? So I think y'all saw today's dish is peach cobbler. I love me some peach cobbler. Peach cobbler is my favorite. I had to think about it. Peach cobbler is my favorite soul food dessert. Some people, they really love banana pudding. And, I feel like we got a bunch of pies, the sweet potato pie and had chocolate pie. We got cakes, German chocolate cake. It's a lot of desserts. But peach cobbler is definitely my favorite. I love that buttery taste. Of course, that fruit, it's peaches are kind of tangy, but then they also just very sweet. And I know that's a lot of how they're preserved, but even a fresh peach, love it. And the flakiness of the crust, it is a supreme dessert. And I low-key so peach cobbler and macaroni and cheese, those be the foods where somebody tell me they don't like either one of those, I have to wonder about them a little bit. Cause why you don't like peach cobbler and macaroni? What is there not to like about either one of those dishes? Anyways, so as far as the history behind peach cobbler, I feel I tried to like really dig into the history because honestly, it wasn't a whole lot of history. Like basically, at a first glance, what they said was like, the people on them ships, the Europeans, they created peach cobbler, and then basically African Americans or enslaved Africans came through and tailored it to our taste from where we were coming from. And I was like, I feel like that was a lot of the history behind sweet potato pie too. But I was like, let me think about this a little more because I had been doing a little bit more research of Jessica B. Harris' work. And I saw she had like this indigenous recipe of like a cranberry and apple crisp. And I'm like, okay, that to me sounds like how we might have gotten to like an apple pie, apple cobbler, peach cobbler. Like I'm trying to find like this through line basically. And so I was like, okay, well, let me go back to that recipe and kind of see what it is. So I looked at that recipe and it was talking about something called sawi tautige, which is a Native American dish. And it's basically like, it's blueberries, cornmeal, and water. And so it would have been like this pudding, but then also it would have been more of like a dessert because of the blueberries being naturally more sweet. So I'm like, okay, I could kind of see, maybe where Europeans were starting to mix more of like pastries and fruit and vegetables, kind of how they talked about with sweet potato pie. So I was like, okay, I could kind of see that. And I was looking it up because in the same piece that I was researching that dish, it was basically saying that blueberries, I found another study that was saying like blueberries, grapes, and cranberries are really the only fruits that are native to America. So I was like, okay, well then where did peaches come from? And I looked up peaches. Peaches came from China. Had no idea. So again, I feel like we talked about in some of the past episodes about how the whole Columbian exchange, which again included the Atlantic slave trade, was how peaches ended up coming to the U.S. and of course other parts of the world as well. And so then I started looking up some of the spices because again, they kept saying like the African American or the enslaved African aspect of peach cobbler came more from like how we prepared it. So the different spices and things that we use. And most of those came from Asia as well. So I saw India, Sri Lanka, China as well. And it was one more that'll come to me. But basically, those also would have been introduced to us by, again, the Columbian exchange. And so it's really interesting. Like I've watched Jessica B. Harris talk about the history of different foods and like how we came to them and have had to admit that the Columbian exchange is a part of it. And it's true, I think obviously we could have done without Columbus and his exchange. But nonetheless, again, the whole theme of like taking some of the toughest moments and experiences and making magic is basically how peach cobbler and many other dishes have come to be what they are. And so when you look up the history, you'll see like, again, Europeans were already using things like butter, fruit, cream, pastries, and mixing them together. So from what I could gather from it, our impact was more so probably more proportions, okay? We probably added a little extra butter, a little extra cinnamon, a little extra sugar, which has made it the delicious dish that it is today. So yeah, that was one of those things that we started to make once we came to America. And it's interesting too, because we kind of talked about this already, but in terms of West African desserts, they're really not a lot. Like sugar is not a big thing in West Africa. Like even when I've seen it and seen particularly Nigerians cook with it, it's like, how we go to the store and get a whole bag of sugar? Like it'll be like a little pouch of sugar that they use very sparingly. But one of my favorite Nigerian desserts is called puff puff. And it's basically fried dough, and they put nutmeg in it too, so it does kind of have that cinnamony, nutty flavor to it. It doesn't have any fruit on it, but that to me is like the closest thing that I've seen in a West African dessert to what we could compare it to with peach cobbler. So again, obviously peach cobbler has that fruit in it, but some of those same like doughy, nutty flavors is in puff puff as well. I love me a good puff puff. You can't go wrong with fried dough. And then we also know that peaches are pretty well known for being related to Georgia. And so, of course, Georgia is known as the peach state. And I realized or researched as well that it became the peach state. So Georgia became the peach state because when slavery was going away and people were basically trying to get away from the history of cotton, Georgia was one of those states that wanted to rebrand itself. And so that's when they started growing more peaches and like peach orchards. But again, the South was based off of slavery. So they, like, Georgia still ended up having a very, like, basically terrible history around becoming the peach state because they were taking advantage of things like convict laws and black codes in order to use prison labor to cultivate the peach orchards. And so a lot of times we know that's how black people were able to be captured and then basically put back into slavery was through the legal system. And Georgia took advantage of that. And then it was interesting too because I saw, like, you know how sometimes you'll hear them call women from Georgia, call them Georgia peaches. And so basically that came from, they would say, like, it was originally used to describe someone with light rosy skin. So for the most part, white people. But there was this woman named Clara Hutman. She was a gospel singer, and she basically reclaimed it for black women because she would start to use it as her stage name. So that's how we start to see some of the black performers start to use it or call themselves Georgia Peaches as well. So shout out to Lotto and some of the other women from Georgia because they definitely used that Georgia Peach tag. And to know that it had that history coming from a dark-skinned woman named Clara Hutman who, you know, claimed it for herself. Another interesting thing about peach cobbler that they talked about was how it would have been used for a breakfast initially. So it's pretty much thought that it was usually a breakfast dish, and over time, especially as black enslaved Africans started to use it, we started to make it more of a dessert. But before, it would have been more of a breakfast dish, and the actual dough that was originally used was like a more biscuit-like dough. And it's interesting because I'm used to the more flaky dough. That's how I was taught to make it. But I have a friend named Shani, shout out to Shani, that she makes it with a more biscuit dough. And the first time that I had her peach cobbler was the first time that I've ever had it like that. And it's good. Like, it's a little bit more buttery. Like, it's really good. You know, it's still sweet, but it has that thicker dough on it. So when I seen that piece of history, it automatically made me think about her and the way that she make her peach cobbler. Which is also funny because she recently did a video that used the audio from Dr. Umar about how women, we need to keep our peach cobbler to ourselves and not be giving it to these men that don't deserve it. And, you know, I don't agree with everything that Dr. Umar says, but he was right about that one. But moving on. I wanted to take the time to talk about body image and self-esteem in relation to peach cobbler. So I was already saying, like, how calling somebody a Georgia peach was seen as like a certain type of beauty standard. And so for me, I was already thinking about using it to talk about self-esteem and body image. But when I seen that piece of history, I was like, okay, perfect. Like, that just fit automatically. So a lot of people don't know this, but I actually taught sex ed for a year. And a lot of that is how I started to become more comfortable talking about sex, like, openly. And I applied for the role because I had this past in science, but then I have done all of this political work and started to be, like, understand more about feminist politics and just be more expansive around my thoughts around gender and identity. And I was like, okay, I want to be in a space where I can help young people have healthier language about this from an early age because I didn't have that. You know, I've talked about my past. And so I wanted to be able to create a space where young people could talk more openly and have safe spaces to talk about identity, consent, sexual health, anatomy, all of these things. And so that was the biggest reason why I applied for it. And we would have this lesson about around body image that would talk about basically like it would start off saying, babies are not born with body image or self-esteem. Like a baby is not walking around asking people how does it look in a diaper. Like the baby's just there, it has on a diaper. It's not until we get older that we start to think about like people's opinions on how we look and things like that. So that lesson always stood out to me because it actually helped me think more about the way that I thought about my own body. Hearing it framed like that helped me think like, yeah, I never thought about that, but babies don't be thinking about it. Like it really is the thoughts that we start to understand about how other people perceive us that start to develop our body image. And so in the terms of that lesson, like it made me think about how I thought about my weight from an early age, because that was like the first sense of body image that I had was like my weight. And it was interesting because when I was really, really young, I used to be like a stick figure basically. Like I was so skinny. But then like when I turned 8, I guess the hormones started hitting and I started gaining weight. And that was the first time that I ever was like teased about how I looked because people would make fun of me. And also like a lot of the messaging that I was getting at home was like, you don't want to be too big. Like you don't want to be too big. And it was interesting because I come from fuller bodied women. Like my family, we just have full bodies. We have like, it's way more women in my family that have full bodies than there are skinny women, But shout out to all of us, all bodies are beautiful. And so that was like a lot of the messaging. And I know a lot of it came from the messaging that the women in my family got, we all basically grew up in a society where the mainstream told us that beauty was more of a European standard, which meant that usually more slender bodies, obviously light skin, a certain type of hair, all of these things. So that message was put on me very young, especially as I started to gain more weight. And I would be teased in school about it too. And I've kind of talked about this, like I never really like went hard on people about teasing me because I was always one of those people like I never wanted to hurt people feeling. Like I would just eat the teasing. Like I really would just like eat the teasing because if I make fun of somebody because they can't read or whatever, like, if I make fun about somebody about anything, like now I'm the bad person because I pointed out that you couldn't read. But why are you talking about me? Why are you talking about my body? I can't help this. This is just what I look like, okay? Stop talking about me. But either way, I ate it. And I remember like very early on coming to a point where I had to make a decision. Like, am I going to let people's opinions about me make me fold? Or am I going to stand up, put my shoulders back, my chin up, and have some confidence about myself? And I just chose the latter one. Like, and I will say, I think watching my mother really helped me with that too, because my mother was a full figure plus size woman, but I never saw my mother look not confident about her body. She carried it very well. And like, she always, again, shoulders back, head up. Like she pumped through. Like my mother, she has a nickname called Jazzy, like always dressed. Like my mama been that girl, will forever be that girl. And she had me, and so I had that image to look at, and that's kind of just how I carried it. Like, okay, yeah, I'm big, and what? Like, you not about to make me feel bad for it. And I think with both of us internally, like when we would go home, like we would have to, think about some of the things that people were telling us. And of course, like I would be lying if I said that it didn't impact my self-esteem deep down inside. But when I went on the other side of that door, nobody knew it. And even in my household, I was that same way too. Like, they would tell me a lot of things like, oh, watch what you eat, da da da. Like, listen, I'm going to eat. Like, I'm not going to starve myself. I'm going to eat. And so, yeah, it's been like, that has always been where I was around weight. But I've, talked about also my journey and how when I came back from college and just started going through this personal development phase, I did start to clean up the way that I eat, drink more water, all of these things. And so I've had like body changes a bunch of times. Like during that time, I started to get super skinny again. Then I started eating a little more. I had cut out butter, y'all. And y'all know how I am about cutting out dairy. And if I could only keep one dairy, it would probably be butter. But I was reading this book and it was talking about basically like you can switch out oil and salt instead of butter. And so I had started doing that. But then all of a sudden I had wanted some butter again. Okay, I had wanted some things that I hadn't been eating. So that's when I started to gain more weight again. And also, again, talking about the PCOS, like you could eat a little sliver of butter and you could have ate a whole pound of it, because that's basically how it's going to affect the body. So I started getting thick again. Again, being more stressed, started getting thick again. So now it's been interesting too, because I've talked about this, that now that I've eliminated more stressors, I started getting smaller again. So my weight has always been up and down. And for me, it's been a big thing of like just being confident in whatever body that I have, you know. I have like, even the way that I wear my clothes now, like I've lost a lot of weight. Y'all know my financial situation. Listen, I lost a little weight, but I'm still going to wear these clothes. And, you know, every now and then, like if I need to go somewhere really nice, I'll go and get my stuff tailored and I look just fine. But I've also just really been having to have a lot of confidence in just who I am and not necessarily like what my body looks like, even though the body look good. Body look good now, but I've had to learn how to just be confident no matter what the body looks like, because again, especially with that PCOS, like you could have a great day and then the next day your body could be bloated and there ain't nothing you can do about it. So as far as weight, that was my journey on that side. And then, of course, like for most Black women, they'll talk about their hair journey as well. And I've definitely had a hair journey. Like I started getting relaxers at a very early age. I still remember like the little bit of time before I got a relaxer, but I probably got my first relaxer at like 6, 5, 6, 7, somewhere around there. And I remember when I was in college, like starting to see women go natural. And I would look at them and be like, I love that they can do that, but I could never go natural. Like that was my thinking, like I could never do that. But I would be like, okay, that's cool for them, but like that I could never do that. And I remember the first time that I had a major hair change, I had went to go get a weave. I think I was like 20. And all like half of one side of my head, all of the hair of it broke off. So now I had to get the other half cut off, and I ended up getting a pixie cut. And I never thought that I could wear a pixie cut before, but when I got it, I ended up loving it. Like shout out to my dean. She put me onto the right hairstylist, because the first pixie cut was a little rough. But she put me onto the right hairstylist, and I loved it from that point on. Like I loved my pixie cut. Like it just made, pixie cuts just make you feel some type of way. Like they just put you in that mood. And so I was in that mood for a long time. And then once I came back to Chicago, again, going through that personal development, I was like, I just want to be natural. Like I want to clean my body. I want to be natural. I want to change everything. And so I ended up going natural from my pixie cut, doing a big chop. And for 12 years, I wore my hair natural. And it was funny because every time I would go get my hair done, they would chop my hair back off. So after a while, I stopped going to get my hair cut. And I would just wear like a natural, pick it out, put some water, a little shea butter on it, and go on about my business. Like that was my hairstyle. And it wasn't until maybe, let me think, like 8 years that I actually started like doing like the twists and stuff like that. So even before then, it was just natural, picked out, natural. And about the 8th year is when I started doing like the twist and things like that to like kind of manipulate it a little bit. But I wore it like that, and then 2 years ago, I started wearing this wig. So the reason why was because I was coming out of my relationship and I just like wanted a new look. Like I wanted new energy. And for the most part, I still was wearing my natural hair back then. But every now and then I would slap the wig on to give us another look, you know, give you some flavors. And in the last year, I've worn this wig way more than I've worn any other hair than my own hair. And it's been interesting. Like for me, I like it. Like it's a new vibe. It's a new theme. Like a lot of things about me have changed. I'm stepping into different like spaces of myself, and the wig is a part of it. But anybody who see me on a regular day, like I ain't got nowhere important to be, or I might have somewhere important to be. Like I want to go hang out with my friends, but I'm still like just being me. I will take this wig off. I will put a head wrap on, like no makeup. I'm just walking around still being my natural self that I've been forever, So I like it because it gives me a different flavor. But it's still like any given day, you'll still catch me in my hair wrap. And it's so funny because at one point I had somebody going back and forth with me about this hair. And a part of it is probably because people have only seen me in my natural hair for the last 12 years. But it's so funny because people be tripping about the wig. It's really the hair wrap. Okay, it's really the hair wrap that brings them to the yard. Like every time I wear the hair wrap, like people always are drawn, and like especially men, they love to see me in my hair wrap. And it's so funny. I mean, part of it, I feel like they be thinking like, I'm coming with a certain type of energy. Like this one man, this was a few years ago before I even started wearing the wig, but this one man was like, I like you got that Lauryn Hill energy. And I don't know what he thought Lauryn Hill was, or even like an Erykah Badu or India Arie, like the people that have been publicly seen with hair wraps on. But like, I think he thought like I was going to be a cheap date. And I'm like, no, baby, no. Especially, y'all know how I am, especially when it comes to men. Like, just because you have money is not going to make me date you. But also, I'm not doing no cheap dating. Okay. So don't think just because you see me in a head wrap, that's what we about to do. Because we're not. And even those women don't do cheap dating. Like, that's why I say I don't know what his version or thought process of Lauryn Hill was. But Lauryn Hill had most of her kids by Marley. That man ain't broke. Erykah Badu, even her brokest baby daddy ain't broke. So I don't know what he thought it was going to be, but nonetheless, like their men are very much attracted to that aesthetic. Obviously, I get attention with this wig on too, but I just hate when people try to make it seem like, oh, women not confident because they wear wigs. Like women get chose no matter what our hair look like. Okay. Bald women get chose. Women with wigs get chose. Women with natural hair get chose. Everybody getting chose. I ain't seen too many things that a man ain't liked. So I'm gonna leave that there. But yes, and then also like more recently I started to wear makeup more. And it's interesting too because when I went to college, before I came back to Chicago, I did a little something. I never really wore foundation. I would put on some eyeshadow, mascara, eyeliner, lip gloss. That was the look. That was the look. When I came back to Chicago and started going more natural, I took off the eyeshadow. But for the most part, if I thought I wanted to be cute, I would still put on mascara, eyeliner, a lip gloss. As I started to get closer to my 30s and the eyes started to age a little bit, I took off the eyeliner and still put me on some mascara, lip gloss. That was the look. But I had went to Nigeria when I met my biological father for the first time. We were celebrating his 60th birthday. And my sister got all of this stuff ready for us to get makeup done, got our clothes and all of these things. Like she organized all of it. So that was really my first time outside of prom having professional makeup. And something about that experience transformed me because I was like, oh yeah, I need to be doing this. Like I need to be getting my makeup done and getting dressed and doing all of this stuff when I have to go to some like an important event. So that's what I started doing. And that's kind of how I started wearing foundation and makeup. So before like this last year, I was still only wearing makeup like full foundation if I was going to like a wedding or like a gala or something like that. And it had to be like I'm getting dressed for this gala because otherwise I still hit them with some mascara, lip gloss and go about my business. But if I go to like a wedding, go out of town, I get my makeup done. If I'm going to like, I just want to be cute. Like I just want to step out, go get my makeup done. But this year I took it up to the next level because, like I said, it's different energy this year. Like this year, I'm sorry, I'm not playing with them. Like, I'm really not. So if I'm going on a date, I go get my makeup done. Like, I still look cute, even if I don't have my makeup on. But it's like, I need you to know, like, this is the standard. When you see me, this is the standard. You need to treat me accordingly. Because I do feel like a man pays more attention, like, to a woman that puts more energy into herself. And again, that's not to say that a woman is not beautiful with none of those things because a man also loves a barefaced, no hair kind of woman. So it's not that. It's just that, I just want you to know the standard is set. Don't think you coming over here, like I said, how men perceive the hair wrap. Don't think you coming over here with no type of bare minimum energy, because I'm going to leave you right where I got you. But yeah, so that's been my whole thing, like wearing more makeup. And I remember saying, like, when I was in my 20s, I remember being like, I'm not going to wear makeup until I get older, because I understood, like, I have natural beauty. I don't have to put makeup on top of this because I'm young, I'm youthful, and I'm beautiful. And guess what? I'm older, it's still beautiful. So when I go out the house, and even like I said, I've told y'all with my PCOS, sometimes I have marks on my face. I will have bad skin days. And guess what? I'm still going to go outside and know that I look good, because I do. So for me, it's like, I'm giving you options. I'm giving you flavors. But if I take all of this off, I'm still that girl. Still that girl. So I've had a very interesting journey. Like, my beauty journey has been very interesting. And, no matter what look I have or what look that season of my life is about, I'm glad that I've spent a lot of time developing my personal character. I'm glad that I've always been able to remain a beautiful person on the inside. And we all have our flaws, outside and inside. But for the most part, I try to be a good person. I try to treat people in a beautiful way, because that's the way I want to be treated. And I believe that that's the way that we all deserve to be treated. And so that is always what's most important, as opposed to the outside. Like, the outside is good. The outside is everything too. But it's also about that personal character, because we've all met people, no matter man, woman, non-binary. We've all met people who could be beautiful on the outside, handsome on the outside, but be ugly on the inside. And nobody wants to be around that person. Like, just to be fair, nobody wants to be around that person. At least I don't want to be around that person. But on the other side of that, I have had to learn that, like, there are also parts of my beautiful personality that I've had to keep guarded from people, because everybody's so used to ugly acting people that they don't always know how to appreciate a beautiful person who has inner beauty. And so people will either try to stomp that out of you and stomp your confidence out of you, or manipulate it and take advantage of it. And so life for me has been this balance of, like, trying to figure out, how do I show people my most beautiful self, but also, like, not let people take advantage of it, And my hope is that, especially young women will be really invested in, like, the inner beauty, because I've worked with young people for a long time, and I know, like, young people are precious. Like, people complain about young people so much, but there is, like, this inner preciousness of young people that a lot of times the world is responsible for turning them into an ugly person. Like, we all were born with goodness on the inside of us, but we let the world transform us and change us into a different version of ourselves. And so if you look at, young women today, they step, like, they don't be playing no games. They got the hair, they got the makeup, they got the clothes, like, they ain't playing no games. And I have been able to see the inner beauty in younger women too, but I do think sometimes it can get a lot more murky. And so a lot of times I just want them to know so bad, like, you can be a beautiful woman on the inside and the outside, So it's been a journey, but we all have to go through that journey. We all find our ways. So I'm sending strength to everybody who's on any type of, like, beauty and self-esteem journey, because, it's all about what makes us comfortable. It's not about the outer world. Outer world gonna always, if you call yourself fixing something, once you fix one thing, then the outer world is gonna complain about something else. So the goal is to just figure out, what do I like? What makes me feel beautiful? And I'm going to do that. And I'll attract the people that I'm supposed to attract, and repel the people that I'm supposed to repel, and not care. Because at the end of the day, when I come back to my house, only person's opinion that matters of me is me. So that's that. I want to talk about this election. America the Beautiful. We all know by now that 47 got reelected. It's been very interesting. Like, I haven't really gotten a grasp on the international mood of 47 being reelected. But the local mood, as far as the people in my atmosphere, has been very low. It's been very low. And it's interesting because even in the last week that I've been like posting things, like I usually every week post something that's political. And this last post that I had the nerve, like some of the conservative trolls caught themselves commenting on my posts. And I have to make it very clear to people, like, this is not your space. Like, do not come over here because I ain't got nothing for you. This is not your space. I'm going to turn you right back around from where you came from because I didn't ask for your opinion. That's number one. And the first time that I experienced that was when I posted about Dexter Reed. And I had a lot of people come on my post talking about, what should have happened and how there was no foul play. And I hid all of the comments because this is not your space. Like, I don't even care about going back and forth with y'all. I could care less. Like, do not think that this is any space for y'all to come and share your opinion because I do not care. Just to be very clear. But none to say, for the people who are in my circle, people have been really feeling it. And I think it's everybody been feeling it, but especially my people who live in the South. Like, I got a lot of people who live in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Texas, and a lot of my people been feeling it. And I can't help but feel because of that, And I personally didn't have a bad reaction to it because I thought that it was going to be hard for Kamala to win in the first place. Have accepted, and I think everybody, like, it's not that people haven't accepted that we live in a racist country, but I have just taken the blinders off of this country. Like, it's racist to its core. People have not evolved that much, especially in terms of racism. Obviously, the piece around sexism is in there as well. And, Audre Lorde has talked about, like, there is no competition of the isms and oppressions, and it's true. I still believe, though, that race is an overwhelming effect. And yes, Kamala was a black woman. Yes, she was. And when you have a candidate like Trump, whose whole premise, the soul of his whole premise is racism, xenophobia, yes, sexism as well, and a bunch of other things, capitalism, all of those things, yes, it all plays a role into it. But even when we think of the case of Obama was never running against a candidate like Trump. Let's be real about him. He was never running against a candidate like Trump. The people that he did run against were more dog whistlers. So they would say certain things to let you know, like, oh, he's talking about black people or they're talking about poor people, but they would not say it straight out. Trump says it straight out, okay? He was on the campaign trail talking about people eating cats and dogs. This is the person that will be leading the free world, okay? Talking about people eating cats and dogs, Haitian people to be exact, eating cats and dogs. He is not, ain't no dog whistling. He's saying exactly what he got to say. And I do believe that if Obama had a run against a candidate like that, he would not have been reelected because racists, they like bold racists. They don't like people who try to smooth it over. They like 45-47 because he explicitly says exactly what he thinks and feels, and it explicitly relates to how they feel. So I do believe that if Obama had a ran against somebody like 45-47, he would have had a harder time getting elected. And even when we look at Hillary, who was also a woman, she still won the popular vote. Most people still came out and voted for her. Kamala lost the popular vote. She lost the electoral vote and the popular vote. Okay? People overwhelmingly decided that they wanted this man back in office. Okay? And so to me, the first reason that she lost is racism with a side of sexism. The second reason she lost, which was a downfall on the Democratic Party altogether, is that the Democratic base overwhelmingly said, we care about Palestine. This is the issue that we care most about. The most important issue to us is Palestine. The Democratic Party still decided that they were not going to move on their support for Israel. Okay? To the point where they basically said, we're going to sacrifice that. Even though it's the most important issue to our base, we're willing to sacrifice it because we wholeheartedly stand behind Israel and the genocide that's happening in Palestine. That was the decision that Democrats made even before Kamala came in to be the candidate, okay? In turn for ignoring that base, they then turned around and tried to make it seem like black men are going to be the reason why we lose this, and we need to go hard on black men, and almost just short up to the point of Biden, who said, if you're not black, if you're not voting for me, is basically what they tried to do to black men. And yes, 22% of black men voted for Trump, but the overwhelming majority of black men voted for Kamala, and we're going to be voting for her either way it went, okay? The majority of black people were going to be voting for Kamala, okay? Yes, a part of it had to do with her being a black woman, but it also had to do with 45, 47 being who he was, and us knowing that our biscuit is buttered better on the Democrat side than it is on the Republican side, even though they're going to eat the butter. They're going to eat the butter and the biscuit either way. Either way it go, we going down, but we got less chances of going down with Kamala. So it also bothered me that, again, you're ignoring your base. You're ignoring the issues that are most important to your base, but then you're going to try to come around and say, oh, black men. And y'all know I'm hard on black men. If you watch this podcast long enough and you've seen enough of my posts, you know I'm not soft on black men. I'm very hard on them. And at the same time, we got to call a spade a spade. She was never going to lose because of black men. Black people don't even represent enough of the population in order for you all to ignore the most important issue and then say, okay, but black people got to save us. No, we can't do that. It was never going to happen, okay? So those to me are the two top reasons why the election went the way that it did. Trump is racist, America is racist, and the Democrats ignored their base. It is what it is. Get it together, come back stronger. Nonetheless, so here we are, 45-47 is elected. Everybody's already feeling things about it. And, you know, there is a contingent of people who are saying like, well, the first time he wasn't able to get a lot of stuff done, so it's not like he's going to be able to get all of the stuff done that he want to get this time. He got a lot of the things done that he wanted to get done the first time around. And I think that we got to be honest about that. Did he get everything done? No. One of the biggest things that he talked about was the border. Did he get the border done? No. Did he lock up a lot of immigrants during that time? Yes. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Okay. Did he do the Muslim ban? Yes, he did. Parts of it got repealed, but parts of it didn't. And it was still enacted. Did he end up taking away women's rights? Yes, he did. He stacked the Supreme Court so that when Roe versus Wade came up, even after he was unelected, it still was repealed. He did a lot of things. He did a lot of things that he said he was going to do. So let's be clear about that. Like, let's be grounded about that. But even beyond that, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm not really that concerned about 45-47. My biggest concern about 45-47 is the people that he's putting in power around him. That's my biggest concern. He still to this day don't really know what he's doing. Like, let's be honest about it. But he at least got enough sense this time to put some people in power that do know what they're doing. And that's my biggest concern. Obviously, we know him and Elon Musk are stuck together like glue right now. That concerns me because Elon Musk, as much hatred as he has and as shameless as he is, he's still smart enough to send a rocket into space. Okay? Those two things should never go together. Terrible combination. As the good brother Drake said. Terrible combination. You so hateful and so smart that you can send a rocket into space and now you have a role in the U.S. government. That is what concerns me. Okay? This woman, Susie Willis, or Susie... let me get her exact name. Susie Wiles. That is the person, if anybody, honestly, that concerns me the most, because this woman was one of his top advisors. This woman was one of his top advisors. During his 2016 campaign, she was his campaign manager, campaign director, Okay. I ended up watching the results, which I did not watch the results. I really usually don't watch the results unless it's a local election. But this time I watched the results. I watched him come on, give his victory speech. He called this woman to the stage. This woman said, "No, I don't want to speak." Anybody that's in politics knows that's the person that you got to be worried about. Anybody that's like, "No, I don't want to be in the pictures. I don't want to speak." That's the person that you got to be worried about, because that's the person that's making sure that whatever the main agenda and goal is, that everybody is on the same page to make sure that it goes forward. Okay, we can collectively all come into the space and figure out what we want to happen. That person that don't want no attention, that's the person that making sure that the ideas come to fruition. Okay, so when I seen her, even before he announced that she was going to be the chief of staff, I was already like, that's the one. That's the one. And, even further, this woman, white woman behind 45, 47, if you know, you know. She gonna make sure that everything that he wants to happen, happens. Nothing is guaranteed, but I would say be concerned. And I wanted to know, like, who is this lady? Because I had never seen her before. I look her up. This woman has started her political career as the scheduler for Ronald Reagan. The same Ronald Reagan that flooded the black community with drugs, that ended up being the crack cocaine epidemic, that he then went and had a Say No to Drugs campaign around and a war on drugs around, that destroyed the black community. Okay, that's who she started working for. Okay, then in his same administration, she ended up going to work for the Department of Labor. Then she's from Florida. She's a Florida Republican and has done a lot of work around Florida politics. She is one of the people who was responsible behind the scenes for making sure that Ron DeSantis became governor. The same Ron DeSantis that has been persecuting, banning books, and going against critical race theory, which is basically just American history. He don't like American history, okay? He don't like comprehensive sex ed and gender equality and identity equality. He don't like none of those things. That same Ron DeSantis, she was very integral in making sure that he got reelected, okay? This woman is the chief of staff. This woman is going to be the person responsible for making sure that everybody's on one accord for the agenda at hand. Okay, next person, Matt Gaetz. Never heard of the man before. He announced him as Attorney General. I went to figure out, okay, what's his story? Long-term Trump supporter. The man is also from Florida, congressman, a lawyer by degree, but really has spent no time doing any level of law. He spent most of his time being a policymaker, being a politician, okay? But the whole time, this is the same man who has been supporting Trump, criticizing the probes against Trump, criticizing the investigation of the January 6th uprising. He don't like none of that. He has been critical of the FBI, which is hilarious to me because I never thought I'd see the day where Republicans would be against the FBI, but here we are. Here we are. He's also very critical of the Bureau against Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. He himself is being investigated by the Ethics Committee because he was at a party where a teen was being sex trafficked. So now everybody's talking about, as the Attorney General, he'll be able to get access to all of the information involved in his investigation. And obviously we know ain't gonna be no investigation by the time he get in there of him, Trump, or nobody else. Anybody that ain't been prosecuted already ain't gonna be prosecuted, which is why he was chosen as Attorney General. And then we know Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who decided he was gonna run for president and drop out and then support Trump. He was being promised that he was going to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services. This man don't believe in science. This man don't believe in science. The name of the department is Health and Human Services, and he don't believe in science. One of the biggest research departments, bureaus, the National Institute of Health is in the department that he's going to be running, and he doesn't believe in science. Now, I'm going to be transparent. I'm not the biggest vaxxer. I'm not. I'm not the biggest vaxxer. I'm not. Y'all know I like natural things. Not the biggest pharmaceutical lover. I like natural things. If I have to get a vaccine, I'll get it. When I have to go to Africa, I have to get a vaccine. Got it. I'm not missing out on Africa because I'm not getting the vaccine. But I also am not the head of the Department for Health and Human Services. Okay? You see where I'm going with this? I'm not the leader of the people who are supposed to make sure that the country is healthy. Okay? I can have my personal views. They only affect me and my children when I have some. And I'm not saying I wouldn't get my children vaccinated. I'm just saying I don't like the idea of it. I'm not a fan of it. Okay? During COVID, I masked up. I boosted my immune system. I isolated from people the 2 times that I got COVID. And I barely got sick. I've had colds, common colds that were worse than COVID. And a lot of it was because, again, I boosted my immune system. I have a relatively clean diet. I had asthma. I thought if I got COVID, it would take me down. It didn't. Back to the subject at hand. The man who don't believe in vaccinations at all is about to be the head of Health and Human Services. This is also the department that's responsible for Medicare and Medicaid. Now, every economist that I've ever listened to, remember when I, again, started trying to get my life together, cleaning my body up, all of those things. I also was reading economic books back then. Every economic book that I've ever read and listened to, and any economists have always told us that Medicare is not going to be here when millennials get to retirement age. I never knew how it was going to happen. They all said it, so I trusted it. We are getting closer to a reality where that can happen. So these are the people that the man has surrounded himself with. This is my concern, okay? 45, 47, the people that he has surrounded himself with, those are going to be the bigger problems. But to the point of this show, things come together. We've survived terrible moments before. We have. It's the reality. We don't like to talk about it, but we have survived terrible moments. Our ancestors survived slavery. And that's not to put a blanket over everybody, because obviously we know there are people who didn't survive slavery. There are people who didn't survive the boat ride over here. There are people who didn't survive colonization from where we came from. There are people who didn't survive colonization for the land that we're on right now. It's not to give a blanket, but the reality is that we have survived. We have survived. We are here. We are literally living proof that we have survived. And guess what? That's what we're going to continue to be doing. And guess what? The chances of us surviving are going to be much higher depending on how well we survive together, how well we get back to back, how well we get eye to eye with each other, okay? And I trust and believe that we're going to do what needs to be done, because I believe that people want to survive. So I believe that we're going to do what we need to do in order to survive these next years, okay? I believe in us. There's going to be a lot of magic being made over these next couple of years. We ain't even going to know how much magic we can make, okay? Everybody love talking about sorcery and all these other things. They about to be calling on God, Jesus, and anybody else they can call on, the ancestors and whoever else we need to call on in order to make sure that we survive these next years, okay? So we're going to be okay, y'all. We're going to be okay. It's going to be a time to remember, but we're going to be okay. We're going to make it past this moment, okay? So that is the energy that I like to sit in, okay? And I think in general, it is impacted by, a lot of the work that I've been doing, but also like just living in this country for as long as we've lived in it. But it's like we have seen disaster after disaster after disaster. And every time we've seen our people do what we need to do to make sure that we're going to be okay. And I don't think that this moment is going to be any different. Is it going to be tough? Is it going to be difficult? Yes. But we got this. We're going to make it. I'll leave that where it is. We could talk about what that means and what that looks like in other spaces. But just to touch on it a little bit, I do feel like, we are going to create the new organizations, the new mutual aid systems, the new infrastructure that we need in order to survive these moments. We're going to build on the ones that already exist. Okay, we have a lot of things in play that if we just pour into it, we'll be just fine. Okay, it's a lot of people love to say just join an organization. Someone who has joined many organizations, I never give that advice to people. Don't just join an organization. No, do your research. Take your time to make sure that the people that you locking in with are the people that's going to really have your back, and not just joining the organization for the sake of joining the organization. But to that point, you do need to find your people. Okay, we all need to find our people. So those are the things that we need to be doing over this time in order to survive the years ahead of us. And remember, we're going to be fine. Like, this is not a time to get too fearful and too far into despair. This is a time for us to relax and rest, because we're going to need it. We're going to need all the energy that we can get. And Black people especially, like, Black people instead, like, we about to be in the back. Y'all catch us in the back. Y'all figure this out. Like, we did our part, okay? We went and voted in droves. Many of us for a woman that we didn't even really support. I didn't really support her, but I knew what was coming down the pipeline. So I said, well, at least I'm going to do my part to make sure that we don't go that far down the pipeline. We don't go that far backwards. So we tired. We tired. We can't save y'all country. And I've been saying this for a long time. Black people cannot save y'all country. Black people cannot save y'all democracy, okay? We do what we have to do because we have to survive it. But stop counting on us to save y'all democracy. So now everybody else move to the front and help keep this ship afloat. That's what Black people are. Now, to be fair, all that being said, the man done said he giving police immunity. So at some point, we're going to have to jump back in the game. At some point, we're going to have to get back to solidarity, because newsflash, most of the Black Lives Matter and movement for Black Lives protests that I've been to, yeah, Black people be out there strong, but it'll be a gang of non-Black people with us, okay? So we gonna still need them. Either way, Black people tired. We sitting out this first quarter. We gonna be on the bench for the first quarter. Y'all figure it out. For greatest place on earth, I wanted to send affirmations to everybody who's been doing that self-work. Everybody that's been doing that self-work this year. And I've been seeing a lot of people doing that self-work. A lot of people pouring into yourself. I've been seeing it. I've been right there with y'all doing my work, and I've been seeing y'all too. And I'm sending affirmations because guess what, y'all? It's almost December, okay? It's almost December, and we made it, okay? We made it, and we have done the hard work. We have done the hard work, okay? To heal ourselves, okay? To make sure that we're in good relation with the people around us, okay? To protect ourselves. Like, we did it, y'all. It's almost December. We did it. Like, I'm so proud of all of us, and I'm sending affirmations, and I know that this year, everything that we poured into ourselves, we are only setting ourselves up for the next year. And so I'm so excited about the work that we will continue to do in ourselves and how that will continue to transform the people around us and our communities. Like, that's the real work, and I'm proud of us for sticking to it. And then I also want to affirm anybody who is feeling bad about this election. Like, I want to affirm you. I want to validate your feelings. And I also want to affirm that, once again, we gonna be okay. We got this. Like, I also feel like, and we ain't really talking about this, but it's a different energy right now. Like, people really, you know, they get a little bit of gangster around them about being in this country. And that has been, again, a part of our survival for a long time, but it's very much like everybody like, okay, F around and find out. You know what I'm saying? You can let 45, 47 get you in a trick bag if you want to. And so I love seeing that energy. And I'm just affirming everybody that has been feeling down about this election, like, you gonna be okay. We gonna be okay. And that's it. I'll see y'all next time. We on episode 6, y'all. We on episode 6. I'll see y'all next time. See y'all. We don't even call these men our men. These be our friends. Never give your all to a man. You don't